Hey, my name is Thomas Cartledge. Today I'm here with Breanna, Florido, and we're going to be interviewing Andrew Reed. Today's date is October 18th, 2019, and we're in the Ruth Patrick Science and Education Center.
Andrew, first of all, thank you for sitting down and speaking with me and Thomas today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're especially interested in talking about your military experience, and mostly we want to focus on your transition from the military back into civilian life and specifically back into the education system.
Great.
So let's go ahead and start with just your early life. First of all, when and where were you born?
So I was born October 1994 in Passaic, New Jersey.
Okay, Passaic, New Jersey. Did you grow up there as well?
No, when I was about 6 years old, we moved to a place called Wayne, New Jersey, which is a couple towns over.
Yeah, Wayne, New Jersey, isn't that kind of close to like New York and Manhattan?
Yeah, I was able to take a bus that would go maybe 20, 30 minutes into the city, depending on traffic.
Oh.
So, yeah, I was right along the Hudson River.
Did you go into the city a lot?
Yeah, when I was older. When I was a kid, I was actually able to see the Twin Towers from, like, my backyard. That's how close we were.
Wow, what a cool experience.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about your family?
Yeah, so my mother was born in Puerto Rico. My dad was born in Oregon. My dad was also in the Navy. So that's kind of how we met my mom. He was stationed in Puerto Rico. And together they have 5 kids. I have 1 older sister, 2 older brothers. I'm the 4th child, and then a little brother.
So a big family.
Yeah, pretty big.
Do you like having a big family? How was that experience growing up?
It's got its ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously beneficial to be around people, but I have met people that are like only children, and seems like they have everything that they could ever want.
Well, growing up, did you have any hobbies or were you in any sports? Did you have any interests throughout school?
Yeah, so throughout middle school and high school, I played volleyball and soccer. And then during high school, I actually started picking up martial arts. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu for almost, I want to say like 10 years now.
Very
Wow.
impressive.
Yeah, so those are my main hobbies in high school.
And did you enjoy school in general? Were you a good student?
No, I was not a good student. So formal education never really came easy to me. So high school, like the education part was always a bit of a struggle, which kind of led me into the military. It seemed way more enticing than going to college,
Mm-hmm.
which was probably one of the main reasons I did join the military.
Okay, so you graduate, and what do you do after you graduate high school?
So I actually did end up going to community college for 1 semester. And I was working at a bar, like flipping burgers for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of, I don't know, something just snapped. And I was like, all right, I gotta do something with my life because this college thing probably, it's not working right now.
Right. And that's when you decided to join the military?
Yeah, so I joined the military February 2014.
Okay.
Like 6 months or so after I joined, or 6 months after I graduated high school.
So after you figured out community college wasn't your route,
Mhm.
decided the military was the way to go.
Right.
All right, so now that we kind of touched base on the military, what do you say we just dive right into it? So we'll start off with what was the date you enlisted into the military?
So that was February 13th, 2014.
2014, okay. And what was it that maybe pushed you to join the Navy over the other branches?
So it's kind of a weird story. So I actually wanted to join the Air Force first, but all 4 of the branches had their own recruiting office, like in the same like strip mall. And I went to the Air Force first, and there was one guy there. And so I talked to him for like one day, and he's like, "Hey, listen, like my wife's pregnant due like any day now, so like if you don't hear back from me, just kind of hold on." So went like knocking on the door, and like he wasn't there for like weeks, and I was like, "Okay, let's move on." So the Navy office had like 10 guys, the Marine Corps office had like 10 guys, the Army guys like, filled with people. So after talking with the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, kind of getting a feel of what life in the military was like, I felt like the Navy probably had it the best. And I'm actually glad that I did join the Navy over the other branches because they do have a much easier lifestyle.
Oh yeah, I can believe it. And when you enlisted, do you have anybody that enlisted with you, maybe a friend or a family member?
So one of my best friends from high school actually joined the Army. He graduated a year before me, joined the Army, and I saw kind of the lifestyle he was living compared to like my friends that were either working at bars or odd jobs.
Mm-hmm.
and kind of struggling through school. And this guy who's like out in Korea, like partying with all these chicks. I'm like, all right, let's
Just go have some fun,
yeah,
right?
let's go do it.
So, what was the reaction of your family when you told them you were joining the military?
So my dad was very supportive about it. He did 20 years in the Navy, so he was all for it, like very excited that someone in the family did it. My mother was very reluctant. She didn't understand that there are so many different, like you can be an engineer in the Navy. You can design ships and weapons and all types of stuff. So that's like kind of the role that I went into. I was a computer engineer, but most people's mentality of the military is like they give you a gun and like you're stuck in the middle of nowhere.
She was just being protective, huh?
Right.
And would you say that your dad being a part of the Navy had anything to do with you joining?
No, he actually didn't want me to join the Navy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a specific reason behind that?
No, I don't feel like I'd rather not discuss
Okay,
that.
yeah, that's perfectly fine. So let's move forward in the Navy career. Let's start with basic training. So I have here that you went to Great Lakes, Chicago.
Yes.
That's near Illinois, correct? Okay,
It's
so
in Illinois.
oh, it is. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So I was researching. Is it true that that's the only U.S. Navy basic training camp in the United States? Okay.
Yep.
So do you feel that maybe altered the way that they would train y'all, being the only one?
Well, I mean, it's pretty. What do you mean altered?
Like maybe pushed you a little bit harder than say if it was one that had multiple areas of basic training.
I think there was a lot more uniformity to it because you would see other divisions, and everybody goes through the same training, so you always knew what to expect if you ran into someone that was like a week ahead of you.
Oh.
So it made things a little bit easier, like knowing exactly what was going to happen.
Okay. So that's actually one of the cool things that I had when I was researching. I came across and I thought it was really interesting. So I just wanted to run that by and make sure it was a legit fact.
Yeah,
But,
it's pretty accurate.
So can you talk me through like maybe a day in the life of boot camp or basic training for you?
Yeah, so Navy boot camp is 10 weeks. The first week is just processing, like making sure your medical's all good to go, you're getting paid, and like any issues that you have are being taken care of. It's usually meant for people that have families back home. They want to get that set up so that their families are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
For like, an 18, 19-year-old kid that doesn't have any responsibilities, you're just sitting there picking your nose, waiting for things to move along. The second week is pretty interesting. So every week you have to do a naval history test, and you learn about some figure, some ship, some battle that occurred, some sort of lingo, and like why things are done the way they're done. And every week you have to pass these tests, otherwise they do this thing called you get AS mode, which means you just get sent back a week.
Ah.
Yeah,
So you thought you were escaping education when really you're going right back to exams
yes.
and tests.
But Navy boot camp isn't too rigorous. It's not like the other branches where it's like heavily emphasized on physical fitness. It's more emphasized on knowledge and how you work in a team. Because when you're on a ship, it doesn't matter like how strong you are. You have to be able to collaborate with people. Otherwise, ship goes down.
Yeah.
That's very insightful.
So I'm kind of glad you touched on the history about it because that's one of the points I had. So the Great Lakes was founded in 1911 until now, correct?
Correct.
So did y'all learn about the history of when it was founded and how it came to be what it is today, or was it more just focused on like the ships and the generals, would you say?
So you get a brief history of it. They don't go too in depth as to why Great Lakes is the only naval station and why like Great Lakes and not Hawaii, Virginia, or some port. So no, I don't really have a huge knowledge as to why
Okay.
Great Lakes is.
Why it is where it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, it's in the middle of Chicago.
Yeah.
But hey, that's still pretty interesting. But let's keep on moving here. So drill instructors, every time somebody goes through basic training, they have one. So look, can we hear a little bit about yours and maybe what it was like?
Yeah. So every division gets 3. In the Navy, we call them recruit division instructors, so RDIs. And, they're just there to kind of break you down and build you back up at some point. It's funny at times. It's a little emotional. You get to see, like, people break at their, weakest moments. You get to see people built at their strongest moments. So I had 3 really good RDCs that knew people very well. So they could pick out a guy in the room and, like, knew like how to work him.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew the guys that were like really fit, like doing a million push-ups wasn't gonna like break them. They knew the guys that like were a little bit smarter and knew that like 100 push-ups would break them. So it was very interesting to see like how different all the different ways someone can be manipulated.
Okay.
It's quite an art.
Hey, I like it.
Were all of your drill instructors male, or did you have any female
I
instructors?
had 2 males and 1 female.
Okay. So, can you tell me a little bit about how that dynamic worked, or may have helped you having 2 and 1?
Sure. So of the 3, there's kind of a hierarchy. There's usually a guy that's been there like 2 years and just really salty and bitter and like just hates life and takes it out on all the recruits coming through. And then there's another guy that's probably in like his first year that's a little bit like laid back, but you know, he's about to like hit the wall any minute now and just like break. And then you get like the new instructor that's kind of friendly and feels bad for you. That was the female. So she was like super nice to everybody. She would see us like panicking and nervous all the time and like try to be nice. And then when one of the other instructors would come in, and then she would be like, "Oh no, like, gotta pick it up."
So there's a good balance between those instructors.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, people are people.
Oh, of course.
I think
definitely.
they understand that to an extent, but they're there to, break you.
Yeah. So, what would you say the hardest part about boot camp was physically?
So physically, like the knowledge test, you do have to pass a physical fitness test to make sure that you're in line with meeting the minimum standards of being in the military. So I would say one of the hardest parts was like waking up at 6 a.m. to like drums and bells and like at the crack of dawn at like 5 a.m. like just doing a workout, and then like you're all sweaty and you got to go eat and then run to this place, run to that place. So I'd say, yeah, like getting woken up was...
Getting woken up?
Yeah,
That's
that was
rough,
the worst.
man, I'm telling you. So what would you say the hardest part mentally was for you?
I would say a lot of people get isolated during boot camp just because you don't know anybody. So, and you don't really get a lot of time to meet people because you're constantly getting worked. So there's a lot of like isolation that happens at boot camp. You don't realize it until like the end when like you're about to graduate and you're like, I don't know any of these people. This was like 10 weeks of like a pretty good chunk of my life, and I may never see these people again. I may never like get to share this experience. So that's something that's kind of difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you think boot camp changed you in any way, and if so, how?
I think it matured me a little bit. It got the mentality of like me first. Like it kind of wiped that out.
Yeah.
So while you're there, if you're very egocentric and you're only thinking about yourself, like you're going to fail. Like you need to be part of a team. And I think the whole point of boot camp, and really the whole point of the military, is to get the mindset of like it's no longer about you. So I think coming out of that, like that's my mentality. Like I'm always there to like help the guy next to me.
Yeah. So more unity versus just singularity, you would say.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. So do you have any
helping you guys out?
Exactly. Glad you're here. So do you have any specific stories from boot camp you'd like to share with us, or anything like that?
Yeah, okay. So everybody has to stand the 2-hour watch, whether it's like 0 to 2 a.m. or like 4 p.m. to like, whatever. Like, you have to stand your watch. Even if like you have a training or an exercise, like you got to make sure that you get to your watch somehow. So we had this guy that was doing the 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. watch, which is like the worst because they send you to bed at like midnight. So you get like 2 hours of sleep, then you got to get waken up, and then your day starts at like 5, 6 o'clock. So like that is the worst watch to do because you get 2 hours to sleep. So these two guys like got up for their watch. Don't really know what happened, but it's like 3:30 in the morning, and I don't know, you just hear like the drums come and you hear screaming and yelling, and we're all like scrambling to get out of bed. We're like, what the hell's going on here? And there's the guy that's supposed to be standing watch is like passed out in the bathroom. Yeah. So we're all there in front of our racks, like no idea what's going on. It's still like dark as hell out, and we're all just like standing there panicking, and we have our 2 RDCs coming in like screaming, like do you guys know why you're getting woken up right now? And we're like, nope, it's just a normal day. And he's like, well, wouldn't it have been nice to have like a watch to let you guys know that we were coming? And we're like, yeah, it kind of would have been nice. He's like, where's your watch? Like, someone go find the watch. And I was like, oh, great, this is going to be like an everyday thing.
Why was he passed out?
Because he only had like an hour of sleep.
Oh.
Exhausted.
Yeah, it's the worst watch. You don't get any sleep that day.
Oh my goodness.
So, after boot camp, where did you go?
So my job in the Navy, they call it a cryptologic technician.
Mm-hmm.
No one has any idea what that means. But basically my job was to work on computers and collection assets in helicopters. So I had to go to a school in Pensacola to learn like the tech side of things. Then I went to, same thing in Pensacola, a different school to work on helicopters. And then my last training was in Arizona, which is where I learned like the actual piece of equipment that I would be working on.
And what was that piece of equipment that you would be working on?
So it's called the Slick 32. And it's a collection asset used on helicopters to pick up different forms of communication. So
Okay.
like radio, cell phone, stuff like that.
Okay, and for the people that maybe don't know, what is a collection asset?
So anything that can pick up any form of communication. So things like cell phones, radios, iPhone apps, things
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Something that can pick up on those signals.
Okay. So I know when we talked earlier, you mentioned that you went to flight training.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about that and what it was like for you?
So flight training is probably the most fun I've ever done in my life. It's about 5 weeks in Pensacola. You're on the beach like every day just swimming and doing like survival training. It's like, you guys ever see the show Lost?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like that. It's like you're stuck on a deserted island, like have
That
fun.
sounds
Yeah,
fun.
do it. So it's 5 weeks of them just like showing you like what plants you can eat, how to boil water, how to start a fire. It's like you're marooned and like you have to survive.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So among that, like you go through like a simulation where like you're in like this like kind of bubble thing, and like your plane crashes and like guys puke all the time because the thing just doesn't stop flipping. So like you see guys come out like all dazed and confused and like vomiting all over the place.
So the question is, if you were in some isolated part of the world, do you think you could survive?
I think so. I think I'd do pretty good.
That's what I'm
That's-
talking
that's a
about.
good
They did their
skill to
job.
have.
So yeah, that's why that training was so fun, because you're just
Mhm.
like in like a very primal environment and just
Just really get to see
do it.
what you're made of.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Heck yeah, man. So we also mentioned you went from Texas and then you went to Florida and Georgia as well.
Mhm.
So can you tell me a little bit about Texas and Georgia since you touched on Florida?
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Did I say Arizona?
Yeah. Yeah, you did say
No,
Arizona.
I did meant to say Texas.
Okay. So
Similar states.
yeah, they're close.
Yeah.
So can we hear a little bit about Georgia and what you did there?
Yeah. So after Texas, I got stationed over in Fort Gordon, Georgia, for about like 3 years, and it was a rotating schedule. So the shop that I was in, we did about 3 to 4 months in Iraq, and then 6 months here, 4 months out, 6 months here.
Okay. So now that you've already touched on Iraq a little bit,
Mhm.
so let's just get right into it. So you were part of the Naval Cryptologic Group NCG 16, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So were y'all all stationed together or at the same time or?
Yeah. So that group is like, it's based in Fort Gordon.
Okay.
So there's, I want to say, 20 cryptologic groups stationed all over the world. Like there's one in Japan, one in Hawaii, one in Great Britain. So they're all over the place. But 16 is specific to Georgia.
Okay.
So the numbers correlate with which one it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. And what type of activities did y'all do as far as work goes as a unit?
So when we're like in stateside, that's kind of our vacation. So we're just there like kind of watching PowerPoints and like watching Netflix and stuff like that. But we're there to just make sure that we're ready to deploy. So the work days were like 4 days a week, 4 days on, 3 days off, 10-hour shifts. Most of the time you're just there to monitor equipment and make sure that things are going like correctly. Like the real work happens when you're in theater.
What is theater?
Oh, so theater is a term used in the military when you're not stateside.
Oh, so
So
like
out of
the
state.
country.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So they call it going into theater.
Okay.
So is that another term for on tour or going to tour? Okay.
Yeah. They say you're going to theater.
Okay.
Nice. So you went on 3 tours to Iraq, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the first tour. And what was the job at the time when your specific job at the time when you went over there?
So my specific job, so I was in Baghdad, Iraq. I worked at the embassy, and pretty like low maintenance job, very low stress. My job was like basically going through like files and files of Excel sheets, just kind of making sure that there was no irregular activity in our communications, making sure that like I knew who was on our network, how many devices were on there, like if there was like some weird anomaly that it was marked and like we knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fairly simple.
And what was the job of the entire unit as a whole, would you say?
It's a big question. So much. Our first tour in Baghdad was just to make sure that the embassy, from a cyber standpoint, wasn't getting hacked into.
Pretty important stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first, I had only been in the military like maybe 2 years, so I was still pretty new when I went to Iraq. So that was just kind of my introduction. They were like, here, just sit in this corner and don't blow shit up.
Hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
So, leaving the country for the first time on deployment, was that hard for you or your family?
A little bit because I didn't know what to expect.
Mm.
So I was nervous and excited at the same time. Like I didn't know where I was going to be going, what was going to happen. But when I got there and saw like how safe everything was, I was like, okay, I could do this.
I could roll with the punches.
Yep, 3 more years.
And how long was this first tour, would you say?
That was 4 months.
4 months?
Mhm.
Okay, awesome.
So the majority of the deployments that people in the military go on are 3 to 4 months.
Mm.
There are people that go out for like a year, and you have that option, but you're not forced into it. Same thing with deploying. Like if there was someone in my unit that was like, I don't want to go, they don't have to.
It's not a bad option.
No.
But I bet it is nice to get out into the world and get to see what's out there.
To experience like
Oh,
a whole
of
new
course.
culture.
Of course.
Mhm.
So you spent 4 months in Iraq. You come back, and how long were you back stateside?
6 months.
6 months. Okay, so enjoyed that time,
Mhm.
and then you're right back into Iraq again for the second tour, correct?
Yeah. So second tour gets a bit more exciting because a bit more experience. I'm kind of higher up on my chain of command. They have a bit more trust in me. So this was this year I got to actually fly in helicopters and do missions. So this was like really exciting to me.
In Iraq, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And during this time, this was kind of like the heat of the war. So this was when ISIS had like really expanded, and this was kind of coming towards the end of Obama's presidency too. So there was a lot of red tape we had to deal with too, because you don't know, like you didn't know who the next president was going to be, what their policy was. So everybody's kind of in a state of limbo because we don't know what we're allowed to do. So everybody's kind of going crazy and like calling, everybody to say like, hey, can we do this? Okay, wait, let me call another guy. All right, can we do it? And then, it just gets stuck in this huge chain of bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like my second tour, like I actually got to do things like fly around and be in missions and collect on bad guys.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we talked previously. You mentioned you helped clear out Mosul.
Mhm.
So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Mosul was the caliphate of ISIS, which is like their capital. It's kind of where, not ISIS started, because ISIS has been around for like thousands of years, but it was where like this new ISIS kind of formulated, and where like al-Jihadi was from, and kind of formed his group.
Yeah.
So while I was over there, we actually got to clear out Mosul and get the Kurdish people like started. Okay. So I don't think I'm explaining this very well.
Take your time.
So our allies in the Syrian civil war are the Kurdish forces, the Syrian Democratic Forces.
Okay.
And ISIS is like the guerrilla fighters that are jihadists, like, Islam nationalism.
Mm.
And then there's al-Assad, who is the president of Syria. So those are the 3 main entities. While I was over there, ISIS had like blown up big, became like very popular. Like, I don't know, people were just into jihadism.
Mm-hmm.
So we were over there. The Kurds were our main allies, and we were over there helping them like take back their lands and clearing out ISIS.
Okay. So how long did it take y'all to clear out Mosul? Was it a few days? Was it longer?
say a couple months.
Couple months.
When I was there, they had been fighting for like 3 months, and then by the time I left, they had just like begun their final push to eliminate ISIS out of Mosul. So I'd say like almost a year. This was
Oh,
going,
wow.
yeah.
And were you specifically involved in any combat in Mosul, or?
No.
No?
So yeah, my main job was a lot of just aviation view, like making sure that the guys knew who the targets were, how to execute the plans, and then I was just there from like a bird's eye view.
Oh yeah.
And then making sure like our comms were good.
Mhm.
Same thing, just making sure that no one was intruding on our stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So, were you required to do any special training before you went to clear out Mosul, or was it very just straightforward?
Yeah, so I had to go to SEER school, which is Search, Evasion, and Rescue. And basically what they do is they leave you in, like, the streets of, like, New York, and you have no money. You really can't tell people, like, what you're doing while you're there. And you have to avoid being captured while living on the streets trying to, like, panhandle for money. At the same time not being, like, recognized by people. But they catch everybody. There's just like professional bounty hunters that run this school. They get you, and then they interrogate you for like a couple days. So I've heard some like horror stories. Like this one dude was like stuck in a coffin for like 2 days, just sitting in his own bile until he like confessed. Yeah. So, but these are like real situations that could happen if you do get captured.
Yeah.
So they want to prepare you mentally.
Yeah.
Mine wasn't too bad. I was just like handcuffed in like this really tiny cell, like being thrown like pieces of bread every couple days. So it wasn't like awful.
Still
but,
awful.
Yeah, it wasn't like my best day.
You did that training in New York, you said, or where
Yeah.
did you do that?
Well, there's a bunch of different schools. The one that I went to is in West Virginia.
Okay.
But they give you like a couple days to like say, hey, this is what's gonna happen. These are different ways you could survive.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is how to make like a shelter. This is what you could use as like insulation for when it gets cold. And then they stick you in like the middle of the city, and you're like, all right, just keep running.
Let's do this. So did they give you any supplies when they stuck you in the middle of
No.
the city?
Nope.
Just threw you right in.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So-
You get like
How did you get money?
just panhandled. Yeah.
What does that mean, panhandled?
Oh, like you ask for money.
Yeah.
Wow, that's such that's a really interesting experience. I can imagine.
But at the same time, you got to keep moving, and you have to like get to different checkpoints because you have
Mhm.
people chasing you.
How long did this take?
I wasn't very good, so I was caught on like the second day. But they give you 7 days to get to your checkpoint. They give you a map of the city.
Mhm.
Like, all right, you have to go here, here, and here by this day. At the same time, like you have to like earn a certain amount of money, and yeah, it was rough.
Wow.
Definitely don't want to do that again.
Probably not something the average person could accomplish.
Mhm. But if like, you know, this could happen. Like you could get stuck in like the middle of Iraq, and you're like, how do I scrounge up for money? Like,
So it's very crucial.
That's true.
yeah,
It's something you need to know how to do.
right.
So how did they go about putting you into the city in a discreet way? Was it like in the middle of the night, or how did they do that?
Oh no, they drop you off on a bus, and then it's like 10 of you, and they're like, all right, you go here, you go here, you go here.
Spread
All right,
out.
you have until midnight to get to this street, and you have to come up here with like $20. Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty impressive. In the concrete jungle, especially.
Yeah.
So what was it like after you were captured by the bounty hunter that was hunting you, and you were in the cell?
So they blindfold you. They stick you in a truck, and they like earmuff you up, so you're in like complete darkness. Like you have no idea what's going on. Like I don't even know how many days passed. Yeah. So I just remember waking up in a cell, like handcuffed, and then they interrogate you. They ask you like a whole bunch of questions, and they teach you these different tactics on how to evade like a story.
Mhm.
So they always say like prolong the question. Like if you were to ask me like say like what's your name, just feel like, well, we haven't had a lot to eat, my guys are hungry, we'd be more cooperative if you guys just fed us or something, you know. So they just say like prolong the answer.
So just keep it going as long as possible
Yeah.
and hold it off.
Yeah, don't be like, hey, my name is Thomas.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other tactics maybe that they taught you to prolong questions or anything else like that?
Like ask about their family. So if they'd be like, what are you guys doing here? Just be like, is everything going okay at home? Like, do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Like, what are your kids' names?
So try to make it personal for them.
Yeah, just constantly evade the question, because if you can get them to forget their line of questioning, then you can control the situation.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a catch-22 that you're just taking over, basically.
Yeah, like you have to figure out their motive, and then because if you're answering their question, you're being very cooperative, you lose that situation. But if you can engage with them on a personal level, like maybe you guys will get some food, or maybe they won't come and beat
Beat you up with
whatever
it is they may do.
Yeah, maybe they'll like not resort to torturing you, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the training. Was that just you that went through the training, or was it your whole unit that had to go through that training?
Well, you have to sign up for the class.
Okay.
So at some point, not everybody goes through the course, but it's there if you want it, and it's kind of recommended that you go for it. And I'm glad I did it once and don't ever want to do it again.
The most fun you never want to have again?
Yeah, but anyone in the military can sign up for it. So
Okay.
you're there with a bunch of strangers, you're there for 2 weeks, and then you're off.
Nice. So let's kind of get back to the topic of Mosul here. Now that we kind of talked about the special training required to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So after you got through with the training, what was a typical day clearing out Mosul for you? I know you mentioned that it was in a helicopter.
Yeah. So usually when you're on deployment, you don't get any time off because it's war. You can't just say time out. So it's like you're there every day, 16 to 20 hours a day. It's kind of nonstop. So the day never begins or ends, is what they say. So you kind of wake up whenever. It's a bit more relaxed atmosphere in terms of military standards because you're constantly working. So you kind of wake up when you want to. You go to bed whenever you want to. But your main job is to just work with your team on getting the job done every day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what was the job of your team? Was it just to ride in the helicopters, or was it more to it than that?
So same thing. My whole unit is just encryption stuff. So making sure our stuff's protected. Try to like hack into the enemy's communication, stuff like that. But our main focus, like during the Mosul push, was making sure that our forces like could properly communicate without any outside interference.
Okay. So when y'all first got word of the Mosul push, the final Mosul push, and y'all were going to take part in it, do you notice any change in morale or boost in morale maybe in your unit?
I'd say so. Like from day one, morale is like very important, especially in warfare. Like you never want to get down.
Yeah.
And even if like you lose something, you never want to put blame or you just want to move past it. So I'd say morale throughout the entire time was like very high, and it just kept going like higher and higher because we were winning the entire time. So
Hey, it helps to win.
Yeah.
That always helps. So was it an exciting experience going to clear out Mosul, or was it one of the standout moments in the military for you?
Yeah, I would say it probably. Well, I think my standout moment was my last tour, but this was definitely like very exciting. I was glad to be there, and then I think about it, it's like a moment in history. So when people read about like the Battle of the Bulge or the Battle of Midway or something, like there were people that fought in that and were very active. So I kind of think of it that way. I'm like now a part of history.
Yeah, like you're a part of it now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So were there any other experiences that maybe we didn't touch on at the second tour that you'd like to tell us about, or?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
Like, the whole invasion into like out of Iraq into Syria and pushing ISIS like further and further in. I think that was pretty much my second tour.
Yeah.